Okay, all of you should know who I am by now. My name is Mr. Barr. I'm down in the College and Career Center. I know a lot of you guys are a little stressed out right now working on college apps, writing your essays, asking teachers for letters of rec and all of that, everything college right now, right? So we're going to talk about college, but we're also going to talk about financial aid. That's what this entire period is going to be about, because there's a lot of financial aid stuff that goes on at the same time of when you guys are applying to college. And that's what the presentation is going to be about today. So this presentation is from Santa Barbara Scholarship Foundation and calsoap. So please take notes, please pay attention. There will be a lot of dates talked about today that you should be aware of. Okay, so without further ado, from Santa Barbara Scholarship Foundation, Rebecca Plotkin.
Thank you. All right, well, good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing today? Excellent. Love to hear it. Okay, so we have definitely a lot of information to go through, and I know that it's quite meaty, this information, so if anybody has any questions as we go through it, feel free to raise your hand. I think I can see pretty much everybody who's here. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started here, okay? So just a reminder that this information today is provided, by calsoap, so shout out to calsoap. Woo! Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get right into it. What is financial aid? Okay, so there's basically a few different forms of financial aid, but this is essentially money that's given to help you, given or loaned to a student to help them pay for the costs of college or for university. And it can be in a few different forms. It can be in the form of free money, such as grants or scholarships. So because this is free money, do you have to pay it back? No, it's free. It's a present for you. So then there's also self-help aid, and that's going to be either loans or work study. So when I talk about loans, I mean loans not only for you, the student, but also potentially for your parents. So because this is a loan, is this money that you have to pay back? Yes, you borrowed it. You have to pay it back, and usually with a little bit of interest as well. Work study. This is a really awesome federally based program where basically you have an on-campus job, you work part-time, it's really flexible. The monies that you earn from that position help pay for the cost of your education. So that's a really great opportunity for those students who feel like they could potentially work while they're in school. So definitely take advantage of that if you feel like you could be that student. Okay, so financial aid, a few different things here, but grants and scholarships, that's free money. Loans, that's money that you have to borrow and pay back, okay? So basically, in order to find out exactly a little bit more about where we begin, we have to find out really what the cost of attendance is for a particular university, okay? You're gonna probably see this phrase kind of thrown out a lot, cost of attendance. It's really a larger figure of how much it's going to cost for you, the student, to attend that university for the next academic year, okay? So the cost of attendance, though, includes a lot of different things, okay? It includes not only tuition. Tuition is the cost of your classes, just to walk into class every day, okay? But it also includes the cost of your rent, your books, your personal expenses, your transportation, any sort of other miscellaneous expenses that you might incur while you are in school. So it's this kind of larger figure, okay, that we can really take to be as the cost of attendance for me as a student for my freshman year next year, okay? So the cost of attendance would be different for UCSB than it would be for Westmont or than it would for Santa Barbara City College, okay? These are all different universities, and they would all have different costs of attendance. Okay, so something that is going to be determined for you when you complete a very important financial aid application called the FAFSA application. Who's heard of FAFSA? Yes, yay, it should be like almost all of us. Okay, so when you complete FAFSA, you're going to include a lot of information on that application about you yourself and about your parents, and it's all financial information, okay? So when you submit this application, FAFSA determines a number for you. This number is called your estimated family contribution. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a number that they think that you and your family will be able to pay for you to attend college for the next academic year, okay? Could be any number between $0 and $1 million. But that, whatever number you get, that is your EFC, okay? And that's gonna help the school figure out what kind of aid you're eligible for, all right? So I know it's a lot of numbers to think about, but we wanna really find out what your need is, what your eligibility is. So this is kind of the whole philosophy behind financial aid and how this works. If you wanna write down anything, this would probably be a good thing to write down today, okay? So it all starts with the cost of attendance for a particular university. Then I'm going to subtract my estimated family contribution from that figure. And that's how I'll find out exactly what my financial need is, what my eligibility is, okay? So I know this is a little bit of math right now, but let's look at an example, and I think that will really help us understand what I'm talking about. So let's say I really want to go to UCSB next year as a freshman. I want to study biology, and I want to know a little bit more about what exactly this is going to cost me, okay? So I know that the cost of attendance for UCSB is $35,000, okay? I know that when I filled out FAFSA, they told me that my EFC, my estimated family contribution, was $4,000, okay? So to figure out what my need is, I'm going to subtract that, and I end up with $31,000 in need. I need $31,000 to go to UCSB. Whew, that's a lot of money, okay? So where's that gonna come from? Well, that's going to come from a few different sources. It's going to come from the federal government. It's going to come from the state government. It's going to come from the institution, UCSB itself, in the form of grants, scholarships, loans, perhaps loans for my parents, in order for me to be able to attend as a freshman next year, okay? Nod your head if you're still with me. Shake your head if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, so most of us are with me. Very good, okay? So, these are the 4 sources of financial aid, okay? This is where this money is going to come from. I've already kind of mentioned these briefly, but let's really go over them again here. The federal government, okay? You're gonna find out if you're gonna get money from the federal government just by completing FAFSA on time. There's also money to be had from the state of California if you want to attend a school in the state of California. And then there's institutional aid. This is aid that specifically is coming from the institution itself, okay? So let's say I'm going to be eligible for a grant from UCSB, but I found out that I really wanted to go to Westmont. I can't take the UCSB grant to Westmont with me. Does that make sense? Okay, that's specifically for UCSB. So then the 4th source that we haven't really talked about yet is outside agency aid. So there are a lot of organizations, there are a lot of companies out there who just want to give students free money to help them attend college, okay? This is usually in the form of scholarships, and those scholarships are those are local, national, international, and it's really, the deadlines are all over the place. So we'll talk a little bit more about those later on, but those are definitely, you know, where a lot of money is available to be had for students who want to put the work in, okay? Okay, so let's start off with federal aid. So this is going to be available to you students by completing the FAFSA application. You'll notice that up here, the FAFSA website is fafsa.gov, okay? Very important to note that it's fafsa.gov because there is another wannabe FAFSA out there called fafsa.com. Don't go there. Don't go to fafsa.com. They will charge you money to complete the FAFSA application, and it's actually a free application. That's what FAFSA actually stands for, Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So we definitely want to be sure that we're going to the right website in the first place. Yeah, snap a photo if you need to. This application is not open until January 1st, okay? The priority deadline for California to complete the FAFSA is March 2nd. Those are 2 dates that you definitely want to write down. Open January 1, deadline March 2nd, okay? Got to get it done in that window. It's going to prompt you for a lot of questions about financial information about you yourself, the student, and your parents, like I mentioned before. So we're going to talk about later on some documents that are very helpful to have on hand when you're ready to sit down and do the application, so you don't have to run around and find that information. And when you are completing the FAFSA application, you're basically going to be finding out if you're eligible for certain kinds of federal-based aid. I briefly alluded to some of them, but we're going to go into detail about those next. So really quickly before I move on, this is the FAFSA page. Here's what it looks like, okay? So everybody kind of get familiar with it. What you all are going to be completing or doing is starting a new FAFSA. So right there at the bottom left-hand side, you're going to go start a new FAFSA application. And it's going to prompt you to begin from there. It's a very kind of straightforward application, but sometimes students are a little apprehensive about completing this. And we're going to talk about some resources that are available to you later if you do want help with completing the FAFSA application, okay? Okay, so here are some different grants and scholarships and things like that that are available to students from the federal source, from federal aid, okay? The first kind is a grant called the Pell Grant, and right now that's worth about $5,775, okay? Usually this is only available to students who have an EFC of about $5,000 or less, okay? And it does really behoove you guys to complete FAFSA as early as possible. You know, if you really want to maximize your chances of getting as much aid as you are eligible for. So if you're ready to do it, like, you know, January 5th, January 10th, like, I encourage you to get started on it, okay? And submit it, just so you don't have to worry about it. Just get it done, okay? You are also determining whether you are eligible for student loans by completing the FAFSA application. There are two loans that you're going to be eligible for. One is a subsidized student loan. The other is an unsubsidized student loan. I frequently get the question of, oh, what's the difference between a subsidized student loan versus an unsubsidized student loan? They're kind of big fancy words that get thrown around. But I'm here to tell you that the only difference between them is when the interest starts to accrue on the loan. Okay, that's the only difference. Very often, subsidized loans are kind of seen as the better student loan because the interest doesn't begin to accrue until 6 months after your grace period ends. So after you've already graduated from college, that's when the interest starts to accrue on that loan, okay? Versus an unsubsidized student loan where the interest actually begins to accrue when you take out the loan, you know, during your fall quarter, starting at UCSB, okay? You don't pay either of them back immediately, but the difference is when the interest starts to accrue on them, okay? It's completely your decision if you are offered loans whether you want to take those out, but I definitely also want to mention another type of loan while we're talking about loans that's available perhaps to your parents. This is called the Parent Plus loan, okay? So how this will work is basically, let's say I'm going to UCSB, I have a bunch of grants and scholarships, and I've taken out my own loans, and now I'm just shy $5,000 to attend UCSB. Well, the financial aid office at UCSB told me I could either do a payment plan to pay for that extra $5,000 throughout, you know, my first year, or I could have my parents take out that amount in Parent Plus loans, okay? So basically, if there's a certain amount that is not met by any other type of aid that I'm being offered, it would be possible potentially for my parents to take out that amount in Parent Plus loans. And this is usually, that's also a loan that goes through the U.S. Department of Education, and it's something that parents actually have to go through a credit check in order to be approved for, okay? So if anyone has more specific questions about loans and things like that, we can definitely talk about that afterwards if we have any questions, okay? There's also another grant that is usually, it's not up here, but it's available to students who come from kind of a lower economic background, and have a really low EFC. And it's something called the Federal Supplementary Education Opportunity Grant. It's usually not necessarily a super large amount of money, but it is something that could help cover books for sure, perhaps a new laptop, something like that. So that's definitely another thing that is federal-based that students who have a lower EFC are receiving, okay? So different kinds of federal aid that are out there and that are available to you. Okay, so let's talk about state aid. There is money to be had from the state of California, like I mentioned. So how do we get at this money? All you have to do really is complete the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act by the March 2nd deadline, okay? Something that I'm going to mention really quickly is, we'll say perhaps I'm not looking at schools in California. Let's say that I'm looking, I don't know, at schools in Michigan only, and I really want to go to Michigan. Every state has their own priority deadline to complete FAFSA, and perhaps Michigan's is a little bit earlier than March 2nd. I don't know all the deadlines for each state off the top of my head, so that's kind of on you guys to investigate and find out if there are earlier priority deadlines if you're only looking at schools in another state, okay? I'm mostly going to talk about California, though, while we're here. So the application, like we mentioned for FAFSA, open January 1st, completed by March 2nd, okay? You'll notice that I mentioned the FAFSA application or the California DREAM Act. So the California DREAM Act is an application that students who are AB 540 eligible should be completing, okay? And they should not be completing the FAFSA application. So the FAFSA application is only for students who are citizens or permanent residents, whereas the California DREAM Act is for students who are AB 540 eligible. And I think we shall now talk about what exactly AB 540 eligible is. So if a student is, in fact, AB 540 eligible, they are a student who is undocumented, but have been attending a California high school for at least 3 years, plan on graduating from that high school, and then also plan on attending a college in California as a full-time student. So those students would be completing the California DREAM Act instead of FAFSA. Okay, they are not eligible for federal aid, but they are eligible from aid from the state of California and institutional aid. Okay, while I'm talking about the California DREAM Act, this is an application that asks a lot of very similar questions as FAFSA. It's going to ask students about their income, tax information. It's going to ask about their parents' income and their tax information. And it also does need to be completed by the March 2nd deadline. Okay? So definitely be sure if you are an AB 540 eligible student that you are completing the DREAM Act and not the FAFSA application. Never ever will a student be doing both of those applications. Okay? It's either one or the other, just to clarify. Okay, and here's a little snapshot of what the California DREAM Act looks like. This is available through the CSAC website. Also, if you just type in California DREAM Act into Google, you should find it fairly easily, okay? And similarly to how FAFSA works, you're just going to be starting a new DREAM Act application. Remember, don't start it until January 1st, okay? Very important. That's the window of the filing period. So, what type of state aid is available then to AB 540 students and students who are citizens or permanent residents? Well, it's something called the Cal Grant for sure. There are a few different kinds of Cal Grants. Basically, it's really awesome if you get one because what they're going to pay for is your tuition, okay? And it kind of varies by which type of Cal Grant you receive. So let's kind of talk about what the requirements are for these different kinds of Cal Grants. Cal Grant A, so I will have at least a 3.0 high school GPA, okay, to be receiving a Cal Grant A. It's also generally for students who are attending four-year universities. You can technically receive it if I'm going to a California community college, but the monies go on hold if I'm at a California community college, and I will then be able to receive my tuition paid for once I transfer to a Cal State, a UC, or a private institution within the state of California. So what are they going to pay for? they're going to pay 12 grand for me to go to a UC. Woo, that's a lot of money. They're going to pay about 5 grand, 6 grand for me to go to a Cal State, okay? And they're going to pay about $9,000 for me to go to a private institution in the state of California, okay? So that's a nice chunk of money that Cal Grant's going to offer me. You are eligible for Cal Grant aid for 4 years, okay? And it's not something that I can be like, oh, well, I want Cal Grant B, or I want Cal Grant A, or I want both. That's very nice, but the state of California is just going to give you one that you are eligible for if you are eligible for one, okay? So let's talk about Cal B, because that's a really awesome Cal Grant to receive. This is for students who have at least a 2.0 high school GPA and are either planning to attend 4-year or a 2-year university in the state of California. I'm going to receive the same amount of my tuition coverage through Cal Grant B, but also you get an additional $1,600 stipend to help you pay for books, any other costs that are related to school. So this is a really nice thing. If I do receive Cal Grant B and I'm going to a California community college, that $1,600 stipend is something that's going to be able for me to use right away. So I can use that, but they still say we're going to promise to pay your tuition when you transfer. Okay? Cal Grant C is primarily for students who are wanting to pursue vocational or technical programs. For example, if I wanted to do the culinary program or the mechanic program at Santa Barbara City College. The coverage for those kind of varies, but there is money to be had for those programs. So definitely just make sure you're getting your FAFSA turned in on time by the March 2nd deadline, okay? That's the way to get at this money. So you're probably wondering why you're seeing GPAs up there, okay? So technically, a lot of times people ask me, well, what's the Cal Grant application? How do I complete that application? Well, actually, you just do your FAFSA on time, and then the second thing that happens kind of behind the scenes is your GPAs are sent by the office here up to Sacramento, unless you tell them don't, which I don't know why you would tell them that, to basically put those two figures together to determine whether you are in fact eligible for a Cal Grant or not. Yeah.
Are those weighted or not weighted?
Ooh, that's a good question. Ish, do you know if they're weighted? Yeah, I'm not sure either. My guess is they're not weighted. Okay, that's my assumption. But it's something that might be available on the CSAC website, yeah.
So for all 4 years, or is this just your last year of high school?
I want to say they look at cumulative probably, okay? But I'm not positive, okay?
Like in the beginning of the school year, we had this pack of papers.
Mm-hmm.
They said on senior year, all the students are eligible at the same level for college.
That's great, okay. So basically, if you have at least a 2.0 GPA, you're eligible for, you could potentially be eligible for both, but the other portion of that is the information you provide on your FAFSA application, and that's what they're gonna look at. They're gonna look at the student's GPA and then look at their EFC, really. And they're gonna say, okay, this person either is eligible or not, okay? I'm pretty sure everyone in here would probably be fine in terms of GPA-wise, so okay. But definitely check out the CSAC website for more information about GPA requirements and whether they look at cumulative or just senior year, okay? Good questions. Okay, something else that is available from the state of California that is relatively new is something called the Middle Class Scholarship. This is a really awesome financial aid opportunity that's specifically for the middle class. So for the 2016-17 maximum that a student could be awarded from a Cal State is about $1,642, which is a nice little chunk of money there. And for UC, it's about $3,672. Just so you know, the middle class scholarship is only available to students who are going to a CSU or a UC. And the ultimate plan for the middle class scholarship is that it will be a 40% discount of tuition, okay? So that's kind of the idea there. How do we get at this money? I just complete FAFSA on time by the March 2nd deadline. Hey, it's like a recurring theme. Just do your FAFSA on time, okay? The middle class scholarship is definitely something that is available to students who come from that middle class background. There's certain aid available for students who have families make up to $100,000 a year and even up to $150,000 a year, okay? So definitely just do that FAFSA on time. Okay. Let's also talk about institutional aid and what that is exactly and how to get at that money. So every school, every year, sets aside a big pot of money for students to apply for in the form of scholarships, usually. So basically, this is really a great place for you guys to be doing a lot of investigation, specifically for schools that you're interested in, because sometimes schools might have a separate application that you need to complete. It might be posted somewhere on their financial aid page on their website. I don't know. It depends per school. They might just tell you, oh, just do FAFSA on time, and we'll throw you in the pool for different kind of aid and scholarships that are available to incoming freshmen or something, okay? If you are considering private schools, definitely be sure to check out the CSS profile. We'll look at the school's website first, see if they require it in the first place. This is another financial aid application that's a little bit more detailed than FAFSA and does cost $25 a pop to submit. Okay, so just be aware of that. I believe fee waivers are available. And some private schools just usually want a bigger picture of the student financially so that they can determine aid for them. Perfect. So it is unweighted, and it's for sophomore and junior year for the Cal Grant application. Okay? So, thank you. Okay. So, we've talked a lot about these very important applications. We're going to talk about now what kinds of things you'll need to gather in order to get these done. So you're either doing the FAFSA or you're doing the California DREAM Act, and it's open January 1st, and the deadline to complete it is March 2nd, okay? Just in case no one's heard that yet. Don't miss the deadline. You do it March 3rd, you submit it March 3rd, you're no longer, able to receive aid from the state of California, okay? So get it done. Yes? EFC? So that's the number that they'll kick back to you, your EFC, after you complete the FAFSA application. Technically, yes. Okay. There is a tool called FAFSA number 4, Caster. If you want to get a general idea about what your EFC could potentially be, it is a legitimate through FAFSA, but it's like a mini kind of not real FAFSA. It's only like 3 or 4 questions or something for you to get a general idea of what kind of aid you could be eligible for. It doesn't tell you what aid you're getting from California. It doesn't tell you what aid you're getting from the institution, but it's kind of tells you what federal stuff you could be eligible for. Okay, if anyone wants to check that out, it's FAFSA number 4, Caster. Okay. Okay, so what in the world do we need to gather in order to complete the FAFSA application in the first place? Okay, it's a number of different things. Okay, and I definitely recommend that you consult a parent in order to make sure that you find the appropriate documents for this application. It's very important that we're completing the FAFSA as accurately as possible. Okay, everybody stay with me. So some things you might need: your parents' birth dates. Okay, when I was doing my FAFSA for the first time, I realized I did not know the year that my parents were born. Okay, so I know, right? I know, isn't that horrible? Like, okay, so it's okay if you don't know though, but just ask your parents for their birth dates. Okay, I knew the date, I just didn't know the year. Social security numbers, okay? You're gonna need your parents' social security numbers. You're going to need your social security number. you know, I've helped a lot of students with FAFSA in the past, and then they just pop out their phone and they're pulling their social off a picture that they took on their phone. I don't know if I would recommend that, though, because that's really, you know, that's private information you want to kind of keep on lockdown. So maybe just try to memorize your social security number, and then, you know, consult your parents for theirs. They're going to need 2015 tax information, but maybe it's January 10th and you're ready to do FAFSA and your parents haven't filed taxes for 2015 yet. Goodness, it's only January 15th. That's okay. What you can provide are 2014 tax information estimates, and that's fine to submit the FAFSA with estimates. But what you will need to do if you've done estimates is go back later once your parents have filed their taxes and input the actual numbers, the correct information, and submit it one more time, okay? Any information that you have on savings or investments for your family, those are some questions that are going to come up on FAFSA for sure. And any records that you have, or your parents have maybe on untaxed income. So if they're receiving any disability, workers' compensation, things like that, the FAFSA application totally is going to ask about that and what the amounts are, okay? So if you already know, oh, yeah, I'm one of the students who's getting some untaxed income, so I need to make sure I'm inputting that correct information, okay? Cannot stress enough that this information is correct or not, because what can happen is if you're like, oh, I don't know that, 0, I don't know that, 0, 0, submit, yeah, that's definitely cause for concern if you've just entered zeros for all of your information because you don't know it, because you could potentially lose all your aid, okay? So make sure you're doing this accurately. If you don't know what to put, if you don't know what they're asking, ask somebody who knows. Contact calsoap, contact Scholarship Foundation. We help students with FAFSA every year, so make sure to ask us if you're not sure. Okay, something new for you guys this year. For the FAFSA application, you were required to basically get in there with something called an FSA ID, okay? This is the federal student page where you will basically get one. It's going to serve as your login information to get into the application in the first place. You can actually go onto this site now and create an FSA ID for you yourself. Your parents are also going to need their own FSA ID, okay? We cannot physically sign the FAFSA document, correct? It's an online application, but this FSA ID is going to serve as your virtual signature, and then your parents' FSA ID is going to serve as their virtual signature, okay? So it's very important to kind of get that information beforehand, before you're ready to start the application, if you really want to kind of expedite the process. Okay, so really quickly, the social security number that you're using to do FAFSA, that does have to be for students who are citizens or permanent residents. If you are an AB 540 student who happens to be receiving a DACA-issued social security number, unfortunately, that number is only for work permit purposes, so it's not something that you would use to do the FAFSA at all, and you should be completing the California DREAM Act application. Okay, just a really quick reminder. So what if I didn't file taxes, you the student? Well, there is a section where you will get to on that portion of the FAFSA application that basically says, you know, oh, well, did you file taxes in 2015, or do you kind of plan on filing taxes in 2015? Well, maybe I didn't make enough to file taxes, and that's okay. You just indicate that, and then you indicate if you've earned any money whatsoever, if you have any money in your savings or checking account, and so forth. It's very straightforward. If you haven't filed taxes. There's just basically, you don't have to put in any information for those fields. Okay, so often I get the question, oh, you know, well, I'm going to college, so I'm an independent student, right? And I go, actually, no, probably not, okay? Generally speaking, most students here are going to be dependent students. So that means when you're doing FAFSA, you do, and you really ought to provide parental information on the FAFSA application. You are only not dependent if you are married, you have kids, you have legal guardians, you're a ward of the court, or you're in active duty, or you're an emancipated minor, okay? So those are the only situations, or you're 24 years old. Those are the only situations in which you would be completing FAFSA just as a student and not having to put parental information. But because all of us, or most of us here today, are dependent, you are required to put parental information on there. If you are in a situation where you maybe you're not on good terms with your parents, maybe come speak to me afterwards and I can tell you a little bit more about what kind of options you have to do for the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application. Okay, so I've already mentioned this, but basically as dependent students we have to provide parental information. That means their social security numbers and their tax information as well as your own, okay? So what if I run into the situation when I have a social security number, but in fact my parents don't, okay? It's still possible for you to do the FAFSA if you have a social security number, but basically how you would be completing the portion for them is you would be inputting all zeros for their social security information. And they would have to do what is called a physical paper signature. So because they don't have a social, they can't sign up for an FSA ID. They would have to actually print out a page, physically sign it, that you will be prompted to do at the very end of the application. You'll have to mail it in to the FAFSA folks. So again, come see me afterwards if this happens to be the situation you're in, and I can help clarify any questions you have. Okay. When you're doing the FAFSA application, you're going to have 10 spots to list the schools that you're applying to for the 2016-17 school year, okay? So if you run into the situation where you're applying to like 15 schools, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do FAFSA once with the first 10, okay? And you're going to submit it, and then you're going to go back in, and then you're going to take away those 10 and put in the other 5 that you're applying to also, and then you're going to have to submit it one more time. So this is for first-time submissions with estimates, perhaps, and then also you're going to have to do the same thing technically again once you do after your parents file taxes and you input all the correct information. If those schools are still ones that you're really interested in. Okay, so that's a little bit of a unique situation, but it happens. Okay, so let's kind of go over this whole process, how it's going to work, what's going down. You complete the FAFSA application, okay? After you complete it, you're going to receive 3 to 5 days later your student aid report. This is also known as your SAR. It's important. Why? It's got your EFC on it. That's what you want to know, okay? And then if you need to, you will complete any verification process if you are selected for it. Not everyone gets selected for this process. The school that you've been accepted to and you wanted to go to will let you know. They might say, hey, we want to double check on that information you provided on FAFSA. Could you swing by and give us your tax returns or your parents' tax returns, okay? And that's something you should all be able to provide, okay, to verify the information. Like I said, not everyone is selected for this process. Then you will receive and review any award offer you receive from the institution. So let's say I get an award letter from UCSB, and I can see on it that they're offering me the blah blah grant, the blah blah scholarship, my own student loans, and that's my package, okay? So you'll be able to review those and look them over. You'll respond to the colleges, yes, I want to go here. No, thank you. You'll complete any pending processes, so make sure you're checking your email after this all goes down. That's the primary form of communication that all these colleges are going to have with you guys. If you have anything that hangs in the balance that they need from you, they're going to email you about it. they probably aren't going to call you, okay? So check your email, check your spam. And then, of course, we're renewing FAFSA every single year because every year that I want to be eligible for this aid, I have to be doing my FAFSA application or my DREAM Act, whatever I'm eligible to do. Okay, so reapply every single year, and not only reapply for FAFSA, but also we're going to talk about some outside-based scholarship aid too in a second here. So, in case no one's heard this yet, the deadline to complete FAFSA is when? Oh, yes. Don't miss it. It's important. Don't miss it. Okay. If you feel like you're going to need some help with the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act, I have good news for you. CalSoap has Cash for College workshops, yes, that they do, and they are putting them on in January and one in February, so check out these different locations. They are all-day Saturday workshops, pretty much from 10 to 4 p.m., Check out the site that's closest to your house. Swing by, get the FAFSA knocked out, get it done, get it submitted, and you'll have great help standing by with any questions that you have along the way, okay? So make sure to take advantage of these awesome opportunities. Write down these dates, write down these times. They're important. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about some outside aid scholarship opportunities. A really great example of an outside-based scholarship aid opportunity would be the Scholarship Foundation of Santa Barbara, okay? Just to give you guys a little bit of background information about us, who we are, what we offer. Last year, well, not last year, 2015 of June, technically, we gave out $8.7 million to students from Santa Barbara County who are attending college, graduate school, or vocational school, okay? That's a lot of money, okay? And 2,942 students were awarded, okay? So that's a good amount of students, and these are all students who were basically students who have gone to high school in the Santa Barbara County area. You basically have a really good chance of just completing our scholarship application in the first place if you get it submitted and done on time. So if I lined up like 4 students in front of you right now, told you all of them applied, 3 out of 4 of those would be receiving something from us, which is really good chances, so get it done. Just to put it in perspective for you, okay, for 2015 from Santa Barbara High School, we had 112 seniors awarded, okay? And if we're looking at our lovely blue versus gray people graph over here, you'll notice that most of them are blue. You could be one of the blue people, okay? So please apply, get at this free money. We are actually the largest community-based scholarship provider in the United States, in the whole United States, okay? So take advantage of what the Scholarship Foundation is offering you. Get your application done, submit it on time. But goodness gracious, are you eligible to complete the application in the first place? Let's find out, okay? You just have to have attended 4 years through grades 7 through 12 at a Santa Barbara County school, graduate from a Santa Barbara County high school, okay? And then also plan to attend college as a full-time student, okay, at an accredited university. Most schools are accredited. I see a question. Good question. The application's open now. You can apply right now. That's right. We rescind your scholarship if you don't graduate. So, little incentive there. Okay. So, you also need to be either a permanent resident, AB 540 eligible, or a U.S. citizen to apply for our scholarship. Some things that are going to be required of you to submit as part of our application, which is open right now online through our website: 2 letters of recommendation, your unofficial transcript from Santa Barbara High, your email address, a list of employment, volunteer opportunities and any internships you've participated in, community service, and a personal, that's a weird format, personal essay, okay? So those are basically all included as a part of the online application. If anyone does have any questions about it, you can actually make an appointment with myself or the other program advisor who was here earlier to work on this application and get it done. Because there are some portions that are very straightforward, but if you do have any questions that come up, feel free to ask. So, the deadline for our scholarship application is the 31st of January, okay? That's a 4-month window. It's open, our application opens October 1st every year. The deadline is the 31st of January every year, okay? So, plenty of time to submit it and get it done. The part that is a little bit more time sensitive that it will allow you probably more time to start on is the letters of recommendation, okay? How that'll work is you'll basically be approaching your math teacher, whoever, okay? You'll ask them if they'd like to write you a letter. If they say yes, you'll then ask for their email address. Then you'll go back to the computer where you're working on your application, and when you get to that part where it asks you about your letter of recommendation, you'll put in their name, their email, and how you know them, and press submit. Then the recommender automatically gets an email with instructions on how to submit the letter, okay? So it's nothing you're ever running around with a paper version of, you're never scanning, you're never seeing it, in fact, okay? But you will be able to tell when they've submitted something. It will be orange pending while you're waiting, and it'll be green complete when they've uploaded something. There'll never be a time when you don't know, okay? So, some specialty scholarship opportunities that are available to you guys as Santa Barbara High School students are our honors program and our art program. Some things to note for honors is we usually recommend that you've already taken the SAT or ACT because we request scores. And then you should have around a 4.2 weighted GPA to be doing the honors application, okay? The art application, you just really need to be planning on majoring in art or an art-related field, okay? What to note about these is that they have an earlier deadline, November 15th. That's really soon. If you want to do these, get started like yesterday, okay? So definitely ask me if you have any questions, though, specifically about those. The last kind of tidbit of information that I'm going to leave you guys with is any help that you might need with the financial aid process, understanding it, doing the applications, doing FAFSA, doing our application. Definitely feel free to contact us at the Scholarship Foundation, contact calsoap, and we can set up appointments with you guys to do this. So here's our information, and I think that was your bell. So you're welcome.